today is on the shoulder. So if we lie down, my head in view, a bit this way. Okay, so we're going to think about connection first of all, thinking about our feet, so we'll work our way up from our feet. We want to think about whether our feet are feeling equal from side to side. Then we want to think about each individual foot. Is the pressure equal from side to side on each individual foot? Is it equal from front to back? If it's not, just kind of play around with that. Shift the weight so you get a little bit more equally dispersed between the sides. If you feel like you're on the outside of the foot, try and pull that medial arch down. If you're on the inside, try and pull the outer arch down towards the floor. But you don't want to flatten your foot to the floor, you don't want to get rid of that arch, you just want to pull that medial arch towards the floor, keeping that inner arch. And then we want to work our way up to our pelvis, so we should be feeling connected. I'll tell you where we should be feeling connected. It should be underneath the feet, underneath your lumbosacral junction, underneath your TL junction, both shoulder blades and the back of the head. So we'll just do a few little things now to get better connected. So we're just going to tilt the pelvis backwards and forwards. So we're rocking backwards and forwards. So we're peeling the spine away from the floor, and then reverse peeling, so you're indenting the spine into the floor. Lift up, lower. So you're rocking your pelvis backwards and forwards. And then we just want to stop where the pelvis is in a neutral position. So the midpoint between the two end ranges, we just want to stop the pelvis. So with that, the lower back should be flat on the floor, so we shouldn't have an arch under here, we shouldn't be able to get our hands underneath, and we shouldn't be completely indented in towards the floor. So, but we should just be nice and flat so that we can't get our hands underneath. Okay, so with that, with getting the pelvis in a neutral position, you now should feel better connection underneath your lumbosacral junction, which is the junction between your lower back and your pelvis. And then we're just going to work our way up to the TL junction, to the rib cage. So we need to think about our rib cage and our pelvis, and they should be parallel with each other. For your diaphragm to work properly and for you to get the best amount of stabilisation when you're breathing, your pelvis and your rib cage need to be parallel with each other. But quite often we find that ribs and pelvis have this sort of flared appearance where they're disconnected. So we want to just imagine the ribs and pelvis to be like the pages of a book. So instead of being open with the ribs flared and you get this arch under your back, we're going to try and pull the rib cage down towards the pelvis like we're closing those pages of the book. So it kind of just goes together, pulling the pages together. And then with that you should feel better connected underneath your TL junction now. So underneath the junction between your upper back and lower back. And then think about your shoulders now. So this is the important one for the, well, it's all important, but this is what we're going to be focusing on today, is the shoulders. So instead of having shoulders that are in this protracted position or up by your ears, we want to get them into a more neutral position. So we're going to activate the external rotators and the shoulder depressors by externally rotating the shoulder and depressing, funnily enough, as if you're trying to pull the shoulder blade down towards the back pocket. And you should feel, or you might not feel it necessarily if you've not been used to using those muscles so much, but over time, the more you do these exercises, you'll start to feel the muscles more. But you should feel those muscles at the back here, pulling down into external rotation. What we don't want to do is retract the shoulder blades, so we don't want to pull them back towards the ground, because that's, again, is not a neutral position. Okay, so we want to think about whether we're equal from side to side as well. So if you feel like you're more on one side, just try and get balanced. And then think about the head. So the back of the head wants to push down into the floor. You don't want to tilt your head backwards. You don't want to tilt your head forwards. You want to have this neutral position of the neck, and you're going to push your head down towards the floor, looking up towards the ceiling, and you should feel these muscles at the front of the neck come alive. Okay, so now where we should feel the connection, we should feel connected underneath the feet equally, underneath the lumbosacral junction, underneath your TL junction, with your ribs and pelvis in connection, both shoulder blades and the back of the head. And now we're just going to work on our breath, so trying to get the breath in the right order first of all. So put one hand on your tummy, one hand on your chest. And what we're trying to achieve is a diaphragmatic breath. So when you take a breath in, your diaphragm should go in a downwards direction, which means that the pressure inside the abdomen increases. So when you breathe in, your hand on your tummy should lift. And when you breathe out, the hand on the tummy should lower. The hand on the chest doesn't want to go anywhere. So we'll just think about getting the breath in the right order. A lot of people just struggle getting it in the right order. It's nothing to worry about. It can be frustrating. Just the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and the less you have to think about it. But even just getting your breathing right can actually help improve any pains that you're experiencing, because people who get a lot of neck and shoulder tension, could be because they're chest breathing, and when you chest breathe, you're not using your diaphragm as you should be. So you use your secondary muscles of respiration too much, and then as a result of that, they get overworked, they get tight, they get sore, and they can create a lot of neck and shoulder problems, a lot of headaches. So even just getting this breathing right can help to combat a lot of problems. Do a couple more breaths, really focusing on your breath and what your breath's doing. Try not to think about anything else. Okay, now we've got the breath in the right order. Obviously we want to be creating, so obviously the diaphragm is working because we've got the breath going down into the abdomen. Obviously I know the breath doesn't go into the abdomen, but that's the way we want it to sort of pretend that it is, because we're trying to pretend that we're inflating the abdomen. So we've got the breath in the right order, so diaphragm's working. We just need to now make sure that the diaphragm is working the whole way round. So we want to create the 360-degree breath. So we're going to find these bony bits at the front, grab hold into there, web of the hand around the waist, and then the thumbs into the back. And when we take a breath in, because the diaphragm is going down and it's creating this intra-abdominal pressure, we want to feel all the muscles expand around the waist. So try and activate the muscles to show your brain where they are. I'll tell your brain where they are. If you just cough, feel those muscles expand. And now really try and think about those muscles lifting, expanding, and pushing your hands away 360 degrees. So you should feel it equal from front to back, from side to side. So you can, if you're struggling with this, because a lot of people tend to struggle with the back muscles, or they might find that one side inflates better than the other, let's just start at the front. So think about these muscles, give them a bit of a poke, cough again, feel those muscles lift up underneath your fingers, and now visualise these front muscles lifting and pushing your fingers away. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, through pursed lips like you're blowing through a straw. Think about your pelvic floor as well. So think your pelvic floor is going down towards your feet. So your pelvic floor and your diaphragm should mimic each other. So as your diaphragm goes down, the pelvic floor should go down as well. Now grab into the sides. And now think about those muscles in the sides, just pushing the thumbs into the opposing directions. Try and coordinate the front and the sides and the pelvic floor. So feeling that expansion all the way around here. And now grab hold of the back, so thumb muscles into the back. Cough again. Really now concentrate, think about those back muscles. Think about the back muscles, pushing the thumbs away as if they're trying to push the thumbs towards the floor. Do one more breath. So trying to coordinate the whole way around, so your 360-degree breath. So now we've got that 360-degree breath, we want to think about creating a brace and a brace breath. So day to day, your 360-degree breath is how you want to be breathing. So like I say, the more you practice this day to day, the easier it'll get, the more subconscious it'll become, and you won't even need to think about it. But then when we're doing things that require more stability, so like lifting weights, carrying the kids, carrying the shopping, you need to be able to create more stabilisation of the spine by creating a brace. And it just varies, the amount that you need varies depending on the amount that you're lifting. So the brace isn't a clench, it's not, you don't suck your tummy button in, you don't pull your tummy button back towards your spine and up. It's an outward push. So the way I describe it is to imagine that you're farting. So you want to create your 360-degree breath. Outward push, so pretend that you're farting. And then carry on breathing. Keeping those muscles active, try not to let them completely back away from your hands. So we're just keeping a bit of activity in them. Do a couple more breaths. Okay, so we're just going to start by doing some shoulder flexion. So the movement just wants to come from the shoulder. So we're going to take the arms up into the air, try and get them down towards the floor, try and get your thumbs to touch the floor. So when we go into flexion of the shoulder, it has a coupled movement with external rotation. So try and externally rotate the shoulder as you're taking the arms into flexion. So your thumbs are pointed towards the floor and back and up. What we're trying to do as well is keep the ribs and the pelvis connected, so keep the pages of the book closed. Don't let the ribs start to flare. If you feel like your ribs are starting to lift, just pause at that point, breathe in and try and lower them on the exhalation. And back. And up. And down. And up. Really nice, slow and controlled movements, just coming from the shoulders, not coming from the torso. We want to grab hold of the TheraBand, and you want to grab hold of it with a bit of distance in between so that you can pull the TheraBand apart. So we're going to get more rotator cuff activation, and we're just going to take the arms back. Keeping the ribs down. Thinking about externally rotating and depressing the shoulder as we're doing it. So not letting the shoulders lift up. Only go as far as your shoulders will allow with your ribs and pelvis in connection. Don't force it into this so that you go into this flared rib. Obviously, like I say, stop at that point where your ribs start to flare and just really try and work that position. So breathe, exhale, go a little bit further, breathe, exhale, go a little bit further. When you're taking your wrists back, you want to try and keep your wrists straight. Don't try and touch the floor by extending the wrist, so that wants to stay neutral as well, because you're just cheating the range there. Just do one more. Should feel a stretch all across the front of the chest there. And then get your kettlebell nearby. Just going to do some shoulder reaches. So put the hands up into the sky and you're just going to try and reach towards the sky with your fingertips. And back down. And reach. Reach. Keep reaching. So we can either now add in a kettlebell, or the weight, the dumbbell. So put the kettlebell into one hand. Make sure that the hand is still pointing up to the sky, so you're not grabbing hold of the kettlebell. Make sure your wrist's straight, and again we're just reaching. So we can do single arm with the kettlebell, and then you'll swap in a minute. So you're reaching and then lowering. Reaching and lowering. Swap hands. Or, if you've not got a kettlebell, grab hold of the TheraBand, put it behind your back. You can do double arms, so put it into your hands. Again, fingers pointed up towards the ceiling, and you're just going to lift. So reach with both hands and lower. Reach with both hands and lower. So you can either do that or carry on with your kettlebell. I'm just going to do the other arm with the kettlebell. Do one more. Kettlebell down, band away, and then we're just going to be floating one leg into the air and lower, float the other leg and lower. So we're alternating legs. And now we're going to lift both legs into the air, so we need to create that 360-degree breath and the brace, so that when you lift the legs, the pelvis doesn't tilt forwards. So you're going to breathe in, expand, outward push, so imagine you're farting, and lift, and lower, lift, lower, lift, lower. So just do a few of these, last one, and then we finish in the 3-month supine position. So feet in a neutral position, slightly pointed towards the head, slightly higher than the knees, knees over your hips and hips externally rotated. So we're going to go into shoulder flexion again. So this might be a bit more difficult because we're challenging our stabilisation system a little bit more. So flexing the shoulders again, so creating that external rotation in the shoulder to get the thumbs to the floor, back down. Again, make sure the ribs and the pelvis are staying connected. Again, if you get to that point where you feel like your ribs are starting to flare, you just want to stop at that point, breathe in, and try and get the arms back on the exhalation. Do one more without the band. Grab hold of your band. Guess if you've not got a band, don't worry, just keep doing it without the band, it's fine. So, grab hold, pull it apart, activate through your rotator cuff, trying to externally rotate the shoulder and depress. And flex the shoulder. So go backwards and forwards into flexion and extension. Do one more. Put the TheraBand down, Bring your knees to your chest, give your hip flexors a little rest. Back into 3-month supine, hands stretched out, and you're just going to reach again. And lower, reach, lower, reach, lower, reach, lower, reach. Add in the kettlebell or the TheraBand, reach. Keep pushing the head down into the floor as well. Try not to let your neck go into extension. Swap hands. Couple more. Kettlebell down a second, bring your knees in. Again, rest your hip flexors. And now we're just going to roll, but we're going to take the kettlebell up in the left hand. We're going to keep looking at the kettlebell. And then we're just going to lift the head slightly. And we're going to roll onto our right hand side. Push the kettlebell up into the sky. Keep looking at the kettlebell. And then roll backwards. We want to try and make sure that the body moves as one. So imagine you've got a Lego body. So you don't just want to go pelvis and then shoulders, or shoulders then pelvis. So your pelvis and your shoulders want to move at the same time. You want to end up stacked on the down shoulder, and you want to make sure, I'll just turn this way so you can see me. You want to make sure that your spine stays straight so you don't end up in this banana shape. And then you don't want to flop down and flop back, you want to control the movement. So just going to go to the right first of all. So we're just going to roll onto the side and back. Roll onto your side and back. Punching the kettlebell into the sky. Try and keep the knees separated as you go onto your side. Don't let your knees come together. And do one more. Bring it down, swap sides, and rolling. Looking at the kettlebell the whole time. Punching it up to the ceiling as you turn onto your left. Do a couple more. Put the kettlebell down on our side. We want to be stacked up on top of the shoulder, hips about 45 degrees, and we're just going to keep the spine straight, don't let the spine banana, and we're just going to open up the hip and the shoulder, keeping the lower leg down and keeping the arm pressed down into the floor. We're just going to rotate the body's moving as one again, and then we're coming in. So we're hinging on the hip and the shoulder. So really think about pushing the leg down, pushing the arm down, so you're activating the external rotators as you're going backwards, and then use the internal rotators to pull you back in, out, in, out, let's do a couple more. Okay, so now from this position, we want to lift into our lower oblique sit. From side lying, we're lifting and lowering and lift. Try not to let your shoulder pull forwards into this protraction and elevation, but constantly thinking about external rotation and depression. So down, up, down. If you really struggle with this movement, just get into this lower oblique sit and try and work that first part, so where you're lowering and lifting back up. So just go as far as you feel like you can control the movement and keep that shoulder in a good position. If it starts to get too much to go all the way and you just collapse down, just work that first bit of the range. Keeping the spine straight as you're doing it, try not to let your spine collapse. And just do one more. And now we're in this low oblique sit, and we're just going to lift, and we're going to be rotating round and back. Again, keeping that shoulder nice and neutral. Hinging on that hip and that shoulder, creating internal rotation, external rotation, internal, external. Okay, lower the hip, and we're just going to push the floor away and lower. Push and lower. So we're going from low oblique sit to high oblique sit. Keeping the spine straight, keeping that shoulder active. Try not to let it push forwards. Just do a couple more. And then we're going to lower all the way down onto our backs, roll the other way, and then we're going to do that same thing again on the other side. So roll. So we're going to be side lying first, hips at 45 degrees, and we're just going to be opening and closing. Open, close, open, close. Keep pushing the arm and the knee down to the floor. 2 more. And then you're going to be going from this sideline position into your lower oblique sit and back down and up. Again, if you're struggling with that, with the shoulder, just work the first part of the movement from being starting in the lower oblique sit. Do a couple more. Now in this lower oblique sit, forearm pushed into the floor, knees stacked on top, lift the bottom hip, and then you're going to be rotating round. Keep thinking about your shoulder, making sure it's active, externally rotated and depressed. One more. And down into your lower oblique sit, and we're just going to push up into high oblique sit and lower. Couple more. And then we're going to go, I'm just going to turn myself around. So, from this high oblique sit, cross the back leg over the front leg, keep the hand flat on the floor, you're just going to lift your bottom hip and twist round into bear, and then round to the other direction. So you're in the opposite high oblique sit. Now you're going to lift and lower. When you're in your bear, again, try and think about keeping those shoulders active throughout. Try and make your body come as one. Try not to let your ribs go, shoulders go first, then pelvis, or pelvis then first, then shoulders. Keep alternating sides, go as fast or as slow as you want, but controlled, not too fast that you would lose that control. And then we're just going to finish in this bear, down to quadruped, and then we're going to go down into low quadruped. So I'm just going to turn around, get the ball ready. So low quadruped, you're down on your knees and your forearms. We find neutral, so tilt your pelvis backwards and forwards. Find the midpoint. We want to try and pull the upper back. So I'll just show you here. So rather than this upper back being quite curved and rounded, the aim of this is to try and pull the upper back into extension. So from a flexed position into an extended or a more extended position, but without losing the lower back. So a lot of people, because they lack the mobility in the upper back, when you try and extend the upper back, just end up extending the lower back. So overload the lower back. So we want to try and teach thoracic extension, keeping the pelvis in a neutral position. So think about keeping this still, so once you've found your neutral, and then think about something trying to pull your upper back towards the floor without letting the shoulders collapse. So you don't want to sort of just lose the shoulders. So come into this position, forearms flat on the floor, middle finger in line with the forearm, elbows in line with the ear, find your neutral spine, keep that neutral spine and try and pull your upper back towards the floor without losing here. If you feel like when you pull the upper back down, you do that, literally just try and keep the upper back where it is and then pull the lower back into a neutral position. And then at the same time, keeping your forearm, your shoulders active. So again, that external rotation and depression. Try not to let your shoulders collapse into this winged position. So you're pushing the floor away. So similar to when we were trying on our backs, trying to reach for the sky, we want to push the floor away. So we're activating in through the serratus. So pushing the floor away. Okay. Grab hold of your ball, and then we're just gonna, if we're rolling the ball with the left hand, transfer the weight into the right forearm. So we're gonna be really working the right shoulder, and we're just gonna flex the left shoulder, rolling the ball away, and pull it back. Keep activating through that right shoulder. Pull it back. Let's do a couple more. Swap sides. So you're going to be pushing down into the left forearm now, rolling away with the right hand. Let's do a couple more. Put that away, lift up into quadruped and find your neutral again, upper back nice and flat. And then we just want to keep neutral, walk our hands forwards a little bit. So we're into this 6-month prone. And we're just going to do some scapular pushes. I'm going to come back a little bit. So you want to keep your neutral spine, keep your upper back nice and flat, and we're just going to, again, so pushing the floor away, and then this time we're going to let the shoulder blades lift a little bit as we're going down, and then push the floor away. So same thing as when we were on our backs, and pull them back, push the floor away. So these are scapular push-ups, so we're not going all the way to the floor. It's literally the movement is just happening from your scapula. Keeping your neutral lower back, trying to keep your upper back in a more extended position so we're not rounded like this. Let's do a couple more. Okay, bring the legs in a bit. We are going to lift, so curl the back feet under, lift the bum, so lift the knees into bear, keep the neutral spine, keep the upper back flat, and then push out into plank. And then again, scap push-ups. If that's too hard, go back into your 6-month prone, which is this one, and keep doing scap push-ups in that position. One more. Have a little shake off. Again, curl the back feet under, keeping you neutral, upper back nice and flat. Lift the knees, hinge backwards, creating that flexion in the shoulder. So push the floor away with the hands. Walk the hands backwards into your squat. Wouldn't be a developmental sequence without a squat. So nice and upright. Just going to come forwards and stand. So squat to stand, squat to stand, to squat. Walk the hands back out again, into bear, and then from bear, turn this way, take the left foot forwards, into your high kneel. I'm going to grab hold of the kettlebell again in a second. So with your high kneel, we don't want to be too narrow. So bring the foot out to the side. We want the pelvis to be parallel with the floor. So you don't want to be all cockeyed. So we're going to try and pull the pelvis parallel with the floor. Foot fully connected with the floor. Try not to be on the outside of the foot or the inside. And make sure you've got your neutral spine. So try not to be flexed or in too much extension. So you're going to find your neutral. Try not to round it through your upper back. So get that extension in the upper back again. Pelvis down. Grab hold of the kettlebell or the dumbbell or whatever. If you've got a kettlebell, great, because you can turn it upside down. So we're going to do bottoms up kettlebell press. So it's going to be, if your left foot's forward, you're going to press with the right, trying to keep the ribs and pelvis in connection. And we want to aim, see, I'm finding this hard. So you need quite a light kettlebell with this. We want to try and keep the wrist straight. We want to try and keep the elbow in as much as possible so it doesn't end up coming out to the side. Nice and slow. One more. Oh, I think I need to get a 4. That's a 6 and that's too heavy. Grab hold of your TheraBand again. Put it around your back. Put it in your thumbs. And again, we're going to be doing scapular reaches. So forwards, back, forwards, back, forwards, back, forwards, back, forwards, back. Couple more. Down. And again, wouldn't be a developmental sequence without a high kneel to stand. So we're going to keep the knees tracking the second and third toe, keep the pelvis level, try not to let the knee cave in, try not to let the pelvis shoot out to the side, nice and controlled, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and then you're going to come up, you're going to take the other foot back and then down, and we're going to do the same. So get your pelvis in a level position with the floor, make sure your foot's not too narrow, so slightly out to the side, neutral spine, keep breathing, bottoms up, kettlebell press, and up to the sky, rib cage and pelvis down,
Two more. Grab hold of the TheraBand again, put it around, back, into the thumbs, and you're going to be reaching. So reach and retract, reach and retract, reach, last one, down. Now curl the back foot under, pelvis level, knee tracking the second and third toe, stand, down, up, and then one more, and that's the shoulder series or shoulder session done.